All right. So yesterday we started the class, just an introductions to the class. So today we are starting proper. And the first topic that we're going to look at today is called the Introduction to Computer and Networking. So the reason why you need to first understand computer and computer networking before we go or we dive deep into the AWS cloud is that your knowledge of computer and networking is highly needed in the cloud. That's why companies tend to not want to employ somebody that is just starting up. Like you will hardly see a job description that an entry-level job description. You hardly see something like that because they believe that before you can come and help them to manage their cloud, you should have already been in the industry for long. So you need to understand the computer, how the computer and how one computer, one device talk to other computer, which is called a network. So all of this, you need to understand them before you actually start working in the cloud. So that's why I'm introducing the course, computer and the networking. So without wasting much of your time, let's start. So these are the topics that we're going to look at under computer and computer networking. The first one we're going to look at the general computer knowledge. It's always good to have general computer knowledge, though you don't really need this to work in the cloud, but the knowledge of it will help you, especially maybe when you're talking to your, maybe when you're having meetings or you're talking to your colleagues or your teammates, then they start talking in computer technologies, or they are saying something that you don't know about computer, then that might sound create something like a red alarm. All right. So the first one we're going to look at is general computer knowledge. Then after that, we're going to look at the computer software. You're also going to look at the computer hardware as well. Then we're going to look at networking components, which is networking hardware. Then after that, we're going to look at database and data centers. Then I do not, initially I include knowledge check here, but I actually want to cover this topic today. So I've removed the knowledge check because it's actually not necessary. I will be testing our knowledge as we cover each of the topic. Meaning that I will be asking you questions, so you have to pay attention, right? So the first topic we are going to look at is the general computer knowledge. General computer knowledge. So is there anybody here? Please, I want this class to be interactive as much as possible. Is there anybody here that can give us just a very brief, very simple definition of a computer? Anyone?
It's actually a device that you can use to input data, store data, and retrieve data or retrieve information.
Okay. A computer is just a device that you use to input data, and the data gets processed and they give you an output. It's not it's not more than that. It's just as simple as that. A computer is just a device that it takes in data, it processes the data, then it gives you an output, that is why some people always refer to computer as the garbage in, garbage out. Whatever you put into the computer, that is what you are going to get. Okay, let's test our knowledge. Is this a computer?
No.
Please, I want as many people as possible to be on cam. If I'm not getting people on cam, then I will have to compulsory it. Because a lot of people, they will not be in the class, they will just turn the cam down and they'll be doing something else. So I want as much people as possible to be on cam. Thank you. All right. Is this a computer? No, yes or no? Please be
It could be a
interactive.
computer.
It's
Can
a
also be a
computer.
computer. It
Yes.
can be a computer.
Yes, it can be. Yes.
Okay. A wristwatch or a watch
Yeah.
is a computer. Okay. What about this? A camera.
I mean, you will
It
see a
is-
gungu with this camera that he said we should on. See, you will see masquerade.
Who is talking? Actually, I'm not looking at the camera right now because I minimize it because the yesterday video, the image was blocking the camera. I mean, the image was blocking the video. So that's why. But at times when I'm asking questions, I want to make sure that people are actually there, they are listening. All right. So it doesn't mean that I'm actually looking at the camera. I'm not looking at it. So this is the camera. Is this a computer or not?
Yeah.
Guy,
Yes.
I'm afraid this class is going to be like last class and people doesn't interact in the class.
No,
Please,
this is not a computer.
I would say yes.
It is a computer.
No.
Yes.
Okay. So
Yes.
as the definition of a computer that we give earlier was that something that takes in information or data, it takes in an input, then process the input and give an output. So can camera takes in an input?
Yes.
Yes.
Can it process the input?
Yes.
Yes.
And can it give an output? So it
Yes,
forms a
definitely.
computer, right? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
What about this? A shoe?
No.
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 Except you
sure?
do not have. It's possible it can.
Positive.
It cannot
life.
process nothing.
Positive. It's a no.
You can process your leg and you can move your leg, right?
Anything
All
is
right.
possible nowadays. Oh.
Okay, you guys say it's not a computer. Let's take it off. It's not a computer. So what about this?
Yeah, that's computer.
Yes.
That's a workstation.
Perfect
Yes.
definition of a computer.
Yeah, that's a computer.
No,
So we all agree that a computer is
that's
a
a
device
workstation.
that takes in data and produces an output. Yes or no? Yes.
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 All right. So a computer is an electronic device that takes in an input and produces an output. As simple as that. Some computer also has the capacity to store data. They have the capacity to store data, to retrieve the data, and to process it. Am I blocking anybody? I think Oluchi, you are in, right? Okay. So it has the ability to store data. You know, when you go to your system and you open a notepad and you type something and you save it. So that is storing of data. And next time when you need it, you just go there, you retrieve it, you can even print it out. So that is retrieving and processing the data, or you even send it to people. So in a computer, there are a lot of components in a computer, but there are some major components that you need to just have a basic knowledge about. You don't need to memorize them. You just need to know that, okay, this is actually in a computer. The first one is what we call the motherboard. The motherboard is just like a connector that connects all other components in a computer. We have the power supply unit, which is what brings in power into your computer. We have the computer fan, which makes sure that your computer is not as hot as hairfryer. You know, some computer, when you put them on your labs, you will be here. If they don't have adequate fan, they will get so hot that you cannot even continue. You have to put them down, right? Then we have the brain of the computer, which is called the CPU. And CPU is whatever you are doing on your system, especially maybe you open a calculator on your system, you are typing something. CPU is actually the brain. It's actually what is taking all those things that you are putting in, and it's helping you to process them. Then we have the RAM, which is called the random access memory. This is just like another storage. It's just a memory, it's a storage that it keeps data that is often needed or that is needed close to the processor. And because there are different or there are multiple storage in a computer, we have the other storage, which is the hard disk drive or the solid state drive. That is more like a rest state of a long-term storage. I'll let you say you can't hear anything. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, very well, very well.
Very well.
Very well.
Yes, we can hear you very well.
Okay, I think Oluchi have to restart. She
Log
said
out.
she started a server.
No, it could be from it could be just
Let her log out and log in.
Yeah, they all can hear me. I don't know. I think that might be from a system. So we have the hard disk. That is where you can also store data in the hard disk. But the data that you store in the hard disk is more like a rest or a permanent kind of data that you don't really need right now, then you can store it in the hard disk. But when your computer, when your CPU is processing data, it needs some access to some data very fast. Those data you cannot keep them, or the CPU cannot go to the storage and get those data there, because that is like what is called, it's going to be like a wasting of time. When we get there, we're going to be talking about latencies. So they store some data close to the CPU. Although the CPU too has its own chip, which is like a data directly on the CPU. There are multiple data storage on the system, but I'm not going deeply into that. I'll just talk about them randomly. So the RAM also, some people normally say is that as you are as slow as your RAM. If you don't have a big RAM in your system, maybe those of you that have 4 gig RAM in your laptop, that laptop cannot do multiple things at the same time, because the size of the laptop, the size of the RAM will determine what the laptop or the RAM can run at a particular time. So if you have a 16 gig RAM of a laptop, it can run multiple processes or multiple tasks. It can do multiple tasks at the same time. But if you have a 4 gig RAM, there's limits to what it can do at the same time. And that is the reason why when you turn on your laptop, you are doing something, and maybe you are trying to open a page, and before that page opens, you can go somewhere and come back and it's still spinning, it's still rolling. So that's the work of a RAM. Then we have a network card. The network card is what actually makes it possible for your system to be connected to the internet. If you have a system and that system doesn't have a network card, you cannot connect to the internet. There are also other devices that we don't really need to talk about for this class. And here is just is diagram, an image for majority of what we just discussed. I will leave it there for some seconds for you guys to just look at it. And here is the motherboard. And all of these other devices, they are connected to this motherboard. You can see this is the CPU. It goes on this small tiny thing here. And the CPU too has a chip, which is like a storage that you use to catch some of the data that you need. So those kind of data, they are needed as fast as possible. Then this is the hard disk, and we have the solid state drive. This is the power, and this is the network card. And here is the RAM. And when all of them are connected together, it looks like something like this. Here, if you can see, let me see, can I annotate? No, okay. I will find way to be able to do that in next class. So you will see something like this here. The RAM goes on in this space here. They plug it to this side, and the CPU is somewhere around here, and this is the fan that you are seeing here. So all of these things will plug together on the motherboard, but you don't need to worry about this. This is not, you don't have anything to do with it, but we just need to bring these components to your to you, so that you know that, okay, these are actually what is in a computer. And when you have time, if you want to go deeper into this, there are a lot of articles out there. There are a lot of YouTube videos that you can watch to learn more about that, but they are not really necessary to what we discussed. I'm not going to say they are not really necessary, because when we get to the cloud, all of these things, you're still going to meet them, especially if I go back one step, especially when we go to the cloud. When we get to the cloud, you will be seeing something like this, CPU. But in the cloud, it's not called CPU. It's actually called the vCPU, which means virtual CPU. So, and when you are spinning, or when anytime you want to get a server on the cloud, you need to understand the capacity of the CPU. You also need, we are going to be talking about the hardware too when we get to the cloud. And this is what they normally refer to as storage, like EBS, for those of you that know AWS, but that is not for those people that don't know anything about AWS. Don't worry, when we get there, you're going to understand what I mean. Then we're also going to see network card, and I'm going to show you how to configure network card on AWS. So all of these devices, you will still meet them in the AWS, and that is why I brought them now. So does anybody have question for me?
Yes.
Based on this? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
Now I will look at the camera. Okay.
It might sound somehow, but it's just for me to get an understanding. The random access memory and the CPU. So most times when we buy a computer, we realize that by the time we switch it on, there's some already program profile. So where is those program profile always come from? All those things stored inside it. Is it inside the CPU or is it inside the memory? Because according to what you were saying, we are based on my own what you just said, that I understand there are some things that's under CPU, while there are some other files too that is under memory, where there are some other chronic, maybe bigger size files that is inside hard drive and thereabouts. So I just want to have an understanding.
All right, thank you for that question. I understand it clearly. First thing that I want you to know that when you on your computer and you are using it, if at all, if there is any data stored in the RAM, immediately you turn off that computer, all those data go away. What does that mean? It means that data that persists cannot be stored in a RAM. It goes inside the hard disk. So when you buy a computer or you buy a laptop, all the data, files, and everything that comes there in form of files, folders, they are stored in the hard disk or solid state drive, whichever one comes with the laptop. That is where they are stored. And that, when you turn on your laptop, when it's loading, when we call it booting, when it's booting, it's actually going inside the root device. We call it a root device. It's actually a hard disk. And that hard disk, there's a section of the hard disk that is meant for those files. And when your computer is booting, it's going to those files and it's bringing out those files and it's reading the instruction. And the instruction that it is reading there, that is what it's doing. And we have to just sit down and look at it, because we don't understand, as we are not network engineer, we don't understand what it's saying. We just sit down there and start bringing up some text, some jargons that we don't know, but we just have to wait for it. All those things, they are not jargons, they are instruction. Computer programming is an instruction that somebody have written that instruction that, hey, when somebody press this key, this is what you should do. And that is what the computer is doing. And it's getting those information from the storage, which is either if the laptop come with a hard disk, or if they come with a solid state drive, it gets it from there. So all those information that comes with the laptop, they are either in this one. There are some computers that may come together with hard disk and they still have solid state drive. So it will just be in one of them. But any data that does not persist, meaning that when you turn off your system, they wipe away, then they are stored, they are stored here. But if you are running, if maybe you open a drive, you open your laptop and maybe you are typing something, you are writing a letter, you are writing an article, or you are running a program, then those data can be stored here. But immediately you turn off the laptop, those data wipe away, and those ones that need to be saved will come here. That is why at times when you are doing something on your system and you don't save it and you turn off the system, when you come back like, oh, this thing is not saved because they are stored in this RAM. They are not stored in the hard disk. If they are stored in the hard disk, when you come back and you go back there, you will see it there. I hope that answers your question. All right, let's proceed.
Yes, sir.
So the second topic that I'm going to look at is called the computer software. And at this stage, if you have not been listening to me, please pay attention here because this is very, 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 very important. So a computer software, there are multiple computer software. We have the system software and we have the application software. The system software and we have the application software. Those ones that we look initially, they are the hardware. Now we want to look at the software. In a computer, the hardware, they are as important as the software, but you cannot use those hardware directly because they don't speak the same language that we speak. A computer only understands, the computer hardware, they only understand zeros and one, which we call binary. But when you are typing, you are typing in text, you are typing in decimal, like 0, 1, 10, 5. But computer does not understand that. Everything I'm putting here, you are seeing it like a normal text. But to computer, they are seeing zeros and one. So how is this possible? Then these are possible because of the system software that stays between me, the user, or we, the user, and the hardware. Though this thing I'm showing you is actually saved on the hardware in the hard drive. But the hard drive is storing it as zeros and one, millions of zeros and one, even more billions of zeros and one. But to me, I'm seeing a spreadsheet. I'm seeing a presentation sheet. But it's possible for me to see it this way because of the system software that is in between me and the computer hardware. So the first system software that we're going to look at, there are two types of system software that we're going to look at. We have the operating system and the device drive. When you buy an aftermarket device, like a mic, like a Bluetooth, like anything like a speaker, it comes with a drive. And for that device to be able to work with your laptop, you first need to install that drive. So that is kind of the device drive that I'm talking about. Then we have the application software. There are a lot of application software on your system. You have browsers. Some of you have what's it called? VS Code. Some of you have especially even on your phone, there are a lot of applications, banking applications, media applications, a lot of things. But those are not what we are after. We are not going to be looking at the device drive. It's not part of the training. We are not going to be looking at the application software. Our main focus is the operating system. Our main focus is the operating system. So what is operating system? when you talk about operating system, as I said earlier, is a system software that enables you and me, with the user, to interact with the system, that is the hardware of the computer, through a user interface. It gives me, as you are seeing now, I'm interacting with the hardware of my system, because this I'm showing you is actually stored somewhere on the hardware of my system, which is a hard drive that we looked at earlier. But the operating system is now making it possible for me to go to the hard drive and bring out that thing, the presentation I'm showing you now, bring it out and be reading it to you. So the operating system is one that is responsible for this, and is doing it in what is called a graphical interface. It gives me a graphical interface so that I can be able to see what I stored inside the hardware. So ways to interact with the computer system. There are two ways that you can actually interact with your computer, with the hardware that you have, with your computer system. You can either do the graphical user interface, which is what we are doing right now. And when you are doing graphical interface, that is when you go to your system. That is when you go to your system, you go to the desktop of your system, you open a folder or a file, then you save something inside it. Or somebody send you a note on a PDF and you download it on your desktop. You download, when you are downloading it, you are picking where to save it. Maybe you want to save it in your desktop, you want to put it in document or something like that. Or you bring out your phone and you snap a picture and you save that. All those are graphical user interface, meaning that you can actually see what you are doing. It comes to you as a word, as text. You can see, I won't say you can feel it, but I can just permit me to just say you can see and feel it, because you can see how it looks like. You can open a folder, you can delete a folder directly on the console. But there is a second one, which is called the command line interface. The command line interface is what used to scare a lot of people. When you see programmers, they are typing on the code and you just see in words like that look like a black screen and you don't know what jargon it is. That is when they are using command line to interact with the computer. So when you are majority of the personal computer, like the Windows system, for those of you that are using Windows system, for those of you that are using phones like Android or iOS, or those that are using Mac operating system, those are they are more graphical user interface based more than CLI. It's not that they don't have CLI, but they are more graphical user interface. But there is another one, another operating system that is very, very common in the corporate or in an enterprise, and that is called the Linux, or some people pronounce it Linux. I always call it Linux operating system. There is Linux and there is Unix. Linux actually got developed from Unix. So the major one we are going to be focusing our attention on from when we start the AWS class is actually the Linux operating system, because that is what companies use most. It's not that they don't use the other one, but the Linux is what they use most, and company tends to use they tend to use CLI, which is on command line interface. The reason why you use command line interface, and a lot of companies prefer you to use command line interface, because it's kind of faster. You might think that, hey, for me to go to the desktop is more faster than writing code. Yeah, if you are running a very small task, if you are running a personal task, it's faster that way. But if you are dealing with thousands of tasks at the same time, then you know that command line interface is better. All right, let's look at it. This is my desktop. If I want to create a folder on my desktop, this is the process. I go to my desktop, I will right-click my desktop. When I right-click on my desktop, when I mouse over the name, what does it do? It brings out a folder for me, right? And when I click on the folder, what happened? It creates the folder for me. This is graphical user interface. And what I just did here, I create a container called a folder in my hard disk. So if I open this folder now and store videos or I store files inside it, I can go back later and come back here and view it. Now let's look at the other one, the command line interface. When you are dealing with command line interface, you still go to your system. To use command line interface, you actually need to use it with an application. You have to use it with an application, and there are a lot of applications that you can use. So if you are using Windows, what you just need to do, type PowerShell in the search bar. When you type PowerShell there, it's going to show you something like this. Your home might be different, your home might be blue, but mine is black. So it's going to show you something like this. When you look at this, what is this? If you look at from this C user and the Cornelis Inc., it's just telling that, hey, you are in your own personal folder. It's just that I don't start this training with Linux operating system just like I used to start before. You would have understand this user interface very well. It just means like when you have a laptop and you are not the only one using that laptop, but you still want to separate your own work from the other people. So what you can do is to create a user for each person that is using that laptop. So whenever you want to work on your laptop, what you need to do, whenever you want to work on your laptop, what you just need to do is to log in to with your own username and password. When you log in with your own username and password, what happens? It takes you to your own space on that computer, right? When another person wants to use that laptop, maybe you create another user called guest. When another person wants to use that laptop, what it does is that when they log in with their username and password, it takes them to their own user interface. So whatever they do does not come, you will not see it. And whatever you do on your own system, they won't see it. So if you are doing the same thing using command line, immediately the person log into their own space is going to show them like this, like this user, this is his name. So everything that user is doing will be stored in this name. And this is what they call the home user or the current user. And if you want to understand, if you open the PowerShell, if you want to know who is the current user, you can type a command called pwd. I don't know if that is going to work on Windows, but it works on Mac and Linux. So if you type pwd, it's going to show who is the current user. So once you open the PowerShell, the first thing that if you want to go to the desktop of your computer, when you just click, you just type cd desktop. When you type cd desktop, it's going to enter into desktop. So what that means is that now anything you are doing on this PowerShell will be stored on the desktop of that system. Will be stored on the desktop of that system. So if you want to see what is currently on the desktop, if you just do LX, it will now show you everything that is stored on that system. So now, if you look at this, if you look at my system, the folder that I showed you earlier when we use the graphical user interface, this is the folder here. But instead of showing it in an image format, it's showing it in just like a text. So if I want to see what is inside here, inside this folder, I just need to do another CD, then put the name of the folder in front of my CD, then it's going to enter into that folder. Then I can do ls again to see what is there. The process is, I'm not going to say it's complex, but it needs constant and continuous practicing for you to get it. There are a lot of commands, thousands of them, if not millions, but you don't cram all of them. And let me tell you what we do in the IT world is that there are some things that when you don't work with them every day, you will forget about them. So whenever you need them next time, maybe for the past 6 months, I've not been working with commands and I've been forgetting a lot of them. I will just go to Google, then browse how to do this. Then it's going to bring me the result. That is what they call research. Nobody is going to beat you. They are not going to blame you for doing that. Even if you go to an interview at times, when they ask you, how do you find answers to solutions or to challenges that you don't know? And if you try to avoid saying that, if you try to lie that you go to YouTube, or to Google, if you don't want to tell them that you do that, and if you're just rambling that I will make sure I think about it very well. If you don't mention that you go to Google, believe me, you are out of the interview, because it means that you don't know how to use Google, you don't know how to solve problems. Everybody out there, they use Google. And when I was learning programming, there was a particular topic that they taught us, then they call it Google Fu. Google Fu is just like Kung Fu. Google Fu simply means how to use Google. It is a programming, it's a topic when I was learning programming that they taught us. So now let's look at, I hope we are not due for break. Okay, we are not due for break yet. So let's look at the operating system. The Linux operating system is actually what I said earlier that we're going to be looking at. And there is a topic on its own for Linux operating system. We have the video on YouTube. We also have the video on the Cornelius website. You can go and watch it. And we will still arrange a separate class because it's something that you need to know. And it has to do with a lot of commands. And that is why I don't bring it to the front. As I said yesterday, that I have to move some courses around just so that I don't scare people away, because a lot of people doesn't like programming. But I bet you, if you see somebody that know how to teach programming and if they teach you programming, you will love it because it's so easy. It's just a step-by-step way of doing things. It's just like you are passing an instruction. When this happened, do this. If this happened, do this. If this does not happen, then do another thing. That is programming. It's step-by-step way of passing instruction. All right, Linux is an operating system just like Windows, iOS, macOS, and Android too. So it's even the most used and most popular operating system for enterprise device such as server. A lot of companies, like a personal computer now, the most used personal computer is Windows. But when it comes to server, when it comes to an enterprise server, the most used is Linux. So if you go to a company and you don't know how to use Linux or Linux operating system, then you tend to be lacking behind. So it's very, very important for you to learn and to understand. You don't really need to know everything about it, but know the basic. So there are different distribution of Linux. We call it, some people might say different types of Linux, but the correct terminology is distribution, Linux distribution, or you call it Linux distro. So there are just different categories of Linux. The first one is Debian. We have the Red Hat. The Red Hat is very, very popular. It's popular out there. We have the Ubuntu, we have the Fedora, we have the Linux Mint, and we have the Amazon Linux. The most common out there is these two, the Red Hat and the Ubuntu. Those are the most common out there, the Red Hat and the Ubuntu. And they are also actually the same, but they have difference. One of the things that is actually the most different between them is, one, some of them are open source. When I say open source, it means like they are free and they are available for anybody to use them. While some of them are paid package. That means before you use them, you have to pay. So if you want to use them, one thing that also differentiates them is how you run or how you manage packages. Manage packages, when somebody tell you managing packages in IT or in computer, it means how you manage software. So if you want to install software on a system that is running Red Hat, the command that you use will be different than when you want to install application or you want to install software on a system that is running Red Hat or Ubuntu operating system. Let's look at an example. Look at this. If I want to install a package, as I said earlier, package is called an software. If I want to install a software on a system that is running Red Hat or that is running Ubuntu, then the command is apt. If I now run sudo apt install, I believe everybody know install and you want to install something. So if I run sudo apt install, then the name of the package that I want to install. So I'm using apt install because I'm on Ubuntu system. When we get, if you don't understand this, don't bother. When we get to AWS, you will understand it better. But please pay attention. So if you want to install something on Debian, oh, I misread Hat here, but that is fine. The Red Hat also use Yum. Red Hat use Yum. So if you want to install something on Red Hat, you can use apt or you can also use DNF. If you want to install something on another one that is very common now, especially on AWS, is Amazon Linux. So Amazon have Amazon Linux 2 and they have Amazon Linux 2023. The Amazon Linux 2 is like the old version. So they have a new one now, which is called Amazon 2023. And if you want to install a package on Amazon 2023, it's actually DNF. You can still use Yum, but majorly it's DNS. So all of this, you don't need to cram it. I just have to show you that this is one of the difference between the operating system. But most of the time, like 70 to 80% of them, they are the same thing. But it's just some few commands that are different. So any question on computer software? I only have 4 people on cam. Tina went on cam before, then he ran away. Okay. Okay, see, welcome. So
sorry, I have visitors. That's why I can't be on cam today.
Come right here.
Okay. That's good. All right.
So basically, are we going to be using Linux in everything we are going to be doing?
So like when we get to the AWS, like 80 to 90% of the server that we are going to spin up, we're going to be Linux. That doesn't mean that we are not going to use window, because there's a particular package there, I think on security, that we're going to be configuring Active Directory. So that is going to be using window. And I think that is the only time we are going to be using window. And also when we are going to be configuring a storage, when we're going to be configuring a storage called FSX, that's who we're going to be using window. But apart from those two, every other thing is going to be Linux. So you have to learn it.
So then the commands you talk about in Linux, I know you said there are so many commands. I don't know, maybe as our coach, maybe you have some, sometimes they type some commands down just for us to have it like the way you are displaying to us, so that when we are doing some go back reading, we can see some of the commands, so that, when you started teaching us some things, if the thing wants to get confused, I know gurus always use their method to just use those commands just for us to get familiar, because to be sincere with you, these are the things that is always so scary on my own part. I won't lie to you. It is those commands, because
all right. So when we get there, when we get to the bridge, we will cross it. So
all right.
What I plan to do is just like what I'm doing right now. I'm not a fan of presentation. I'm just starting to use presentation. I have the mind of using presentation throughout this training. But before, I don't use presentation. But I think it can make the learning more easy for people, because I believe everybody likes to see graphic thing. So when we get there, I tend to create something like a step-by-step guide. Maybe, okay, if you want to run this command, run this step first, then run this step next, then run this, something like that. So when we get there, we'll cross it. And also, as I said earlier, we already have a lot of videos. So at your own free time, just take one of those videos. You don't have to rush it. If it is just one command that you can learn a day, that is enough. So don't try to watch 3 hours video of running command at the same time, because you don't let me lie to you, you won't get anything.
I know.
So just take like 5 minutes, look at some command, then try to work with that command, then continuous practicing that command. And then when you think that, okay, I've mastered this command, then you can go back and take another 5 and add to it. Before you know it, if you do that like 10 days, before you know it, you know 50 commands. And all of this, you don't need to cram. Don't cram. When you start using it, it becomes part and parcel of you. And when we get there, because when we get to the Linux, I will show you how to quickly go to your system, and when there's just a command that when you just type it, it's just going to list a command for you. It will list a command that it wants to use. And under that command, there are some commands that is linked to that one, and you can find those on too. All these things are easy to find. The reason why a lot of people have problem with all this command programming is because you watch somebody's video, you follow them, just what they are doing, and you don't know why they do it. You don't know where they are getting those answers from. When I'm learning something, if you type a particular command, I want to know why those commands are typed in that way. And if you type 5 commands all together, I'm going to ask you one question. Okay, these 5 commands that you type all together, what if I omit one of them? What is going to happen? That means the command will break. So a lot of people doesn't ask this question. And what I tend to do is that when I see somebody's code, if I'm analyzing somebody's code, maybe let me take you back to this place. Look at this, CD desktop. If I'm learning like this, I'm like, okay, this is a command CD, and this is a folder. So when I type CD and desktop, that means I want to enter inside that folder. Then when I type ls, that means I want to view what is inside that folder. So if I'm learning this thing, well, what I will do, I will first type this CD. I want to know what this CD means. And there are some program that, some command that this CD now, if you remove this desktop and put --help, it's going to give you instruction about that CD. So a lot of people doesn't go towards this side to learn more about that particular side. They just want to follow what the person that is teaching them is putting there. And that is why when they are doing it on their own, have you seen, maybe we are watching a video and somebody is doing something and everything is just going green, they are going, there is no error. But when you want to do it on your own, the first enter that you press like this is red.
Hey.
Because when that person is writing that code, that command might work at that time. But when you want to do that same code, things change fast in IT. The command that works when that person is running the code might not work again. That is why when I go to YouTube, any video that is more than 1 year, I tend to find another video that is done after that, maybe 4 months, 3 months, because that one that is did 1 year ago, those commands that the person run that works there might not work again. So all this thing is easy. Just take it easy with yourself and those stuff. Just try to learn, ask questions.
Yes, sir.
All right. So no question about computer programming, computer software. I think we can go on break now and come back by 4, right? Or we should just wait. Let me see, what's the next topic? Okay, networking. All right. So I don't want to start networking now and pause. So let's just go on break now and come back by 4:01. I think that would be better, right? So let me see. I'm going to put a timer here. That is Google time.
Oh, that's in 5 minutes.
Just 5 minutes.
Yeah, just 5 minutes. I'll put it a timer now. All right, 5 minutes. When we come back, we'll look at computer network. So I'm going to pause the video. I'm going to stop it. So please remind me to start the video when we come back.
Yes, sir.